Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm your talk host, actually syndicated radio talk host, Dawn Marie Westmoreland, coming from Asheville, North Carolina, the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, coming from WPVM FM LP 103.7 Radio Asheville. I have a syndicated radio talk show that comes out every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone. But hey, if you're in Canada, somewhere else in the United States or the Virgin Islands, you may pick up this show another day and time. So, welcome. So, I'm really excited to talk today about trauma and how we can all get along a lot better today. We know that the world is divided. We know that our country is divided. We have people who think they're right, other people who think the other people are wrong. But I know that we can all find ways and solutions. Today I have Dr. Timmerman coming from Miami, Florida on the show. Hello and welcome, Dr. Timmerman.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, great to have you. Now let me ask you this. What makes you qualified to give all this advice? We know you're a doctor, and I know a little bit about you, but hey, our listeners don't know anything about you.
Fair enough, fair enough. To make life easier, I say I'm a psychotherapist, but I am a licensed mental health counselor and licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been in the field for about 13 years now, 13, 14 years now. And my doctorate it's in counseling education, but with a specialization in marriage and family therapy. And through my work, not only being able to observe, but actually intentionally identifying coping strategies for better communication and being able to develop my own model on the intention, action, perception. I call it the IAP model to improve communication.
And that's so important today. You know, I jokingly tell people I have a really diverse family. Half the family from my mom's side is from New York, the other half is from the country, from Alabama. We have Republicans, we have Democrats in the family. It's a mix with everybody having an idea that they're right and the other person is wrong at times. So how do we what are the strategies to get along with people that think differently than us?
Oh, and let me tell you, I think it's you really hit the nail on the head as you're doing the introduction. I think there's so much polarization right now that sometimes we think we know what the other person thinks, what our in quotations opponent thinks. And so whenever we are talking, we are debating based on what we think we know and not necessarily what the other person is saying. When we actually get to talk, a lot of us have a lot more in common than we believe we do. So it depends on the boundaries that you set, right? So for example, I am a person who I'm very impassioned about my political views. And like many people within my family, there are diverse views regarding politics today. So initially, when I noticed that I can't necessarily tame my impassionate self, part of my boundary was let's not discuss politics because we're not at a place where I can listen, and I will just speak. And the more I've grown through this, there are certain people that I feel more safe with, and some people that I don't feel as safe with because I know that I will be heard as well as be doing the listening. Does that make sense?
It
Um,
sure does. It sure does.
Yeah. So I like it depends on your boundary and how well you know yourself. If you know that in this moment in time, you cannot tame your opinions, I think it's important for you to set boundaries and looking at people as their different parts of self, right? You have your political sphere of a person, you have this person is my family, is my friend because of A, B, C, and D. Now, this is when I can't engage in political talk. There are things for us to be able to engage in political talk. Um, but before I go there, I am looking at your facial expressions. And although I know we're on the radio, I get to see your facial expressions. And I was just wondering if you have any questions or comments before I move
I
somewhere
sure
else.
do. You know, the thing is that you talk about boundaries, and I've been trained as a life coach since 2014. And I actually earned my life coaching down where you live, down in Miami, Florida, with the IPEC. And so I get it about boundaries, but would you break down to the audience that's listening in to the radio what are boundaries? Because there's going to be somebody out there like, what is a boundary? You know,
Okay.
like, what does it look like? What is it?
Fair. I love that question, actually. So boundaries, they can mean different things to different people, right? Boundaries are things that you set for yourself to make sure that you are not putting yourself at a detriment, or that, let's say, if you're a phone, that you are charged enough to be able to work, right? And you're not getting down all the way to zero in battery because you're letting everybody use your phone and you never had time to charge. So boundaries are times for you to pause and recharge, or make sure that the battery just doesn't deplete so quickly. um, Part of identifying what my boundaries are is really figuring out, like, what are my behaviors, what are things that trigger me, right? What are things that I notice when I am talking to somebody, I become a lot more irritable, a lot less patient, or I feel this maybe anxiety come in. Identifying what are things, what are the patterns that lead to those emotions can help you identify what are boundaries I need to set for myself. I'm going to give an example to make it easier. I am the queen of examples. I think that's the best way to quite of understand, right?
Love
When we
it.
put in real life. And I always use my personal life because I can never know about somebody else's life more than they do. I always tell my clients that I can never know more about your life than you do. So I'll use my life as an example. I noticed in relationships, I noticed that in a past relationship from years ago, I've been with my husband for like 13 years now, so a long time ago. One of the things that I really detested was whenever I would make plans with my boyfriend at the time, and I was already expecting that it would not happen. You know, and you get into that space where, like, I know it's not going to happen. It's fruitless to do it. So I'm hopeful, but once that relationship ended, one of the boundaries that I set for myself was to not get to that space again with anyone
Mm-hmm.
because I really disliked it. I would not do things because I am waiting on the plan for things to get done, but I already knew that I was going to be disappointed. So I could foresee the future, and I feel like I was kind of like making it happen. So whenever I'm now with my husband and I notice that I start feeling that way, that we're going to make plans, but it's not going to happen, I immediately shut that down and I'll express to him, I'm going to do this. I would really love if you would participate, but I don't want to get into that space. Or I'll say, hey, can we make a plan this week to talk about this so we get it done? Because I'm getting to that space. So the moment that I feel it happening, I set my boundary, I take action because I don't want to get all the way back there. Does that make sense?
Oh, perfect sense. So let
Oh,
me ask you this. So many things have happened recently that are triggering people, all kinds of people, especially in the United States, and I'm sure also outside the United States. If somebody's feeling traumatized by all the division, the polarity that's going on in our country, do you have any advice for that?
yeah. I mean, it's worthy of validating our feelings and where we're at. I do think that it's really important for us to know what we don't know. Right. And so the concept of pausing, like a lot of the times when we see things happening, we then go into worst case scenarios and our urgency really grows. And it feels like if I don't do something right now, the world as I know is going to end. Right. And so thinking, being able to pause and then differentiate between what are facts and what are assumptions. I think one of the things that we experience a lot here is there's a lot of talk. That
Mm-hmm.
when you look at like 24-hour cycle news and things, there's a lot of conversation about the conversation because the facts are like set in stone, but the opinions about the facts are uh, come out. It's what we hear a lot. And so it becomes really important for us to pause and differentiate between what is a fact and what are our assumptions. So in the IAP model, the intention, action, perception model that I had spoken about a little bit earlier, one of the, I think the first strategy that I ever created for the model, I call it the rule of three interpretations. So the first interpretation is usually the worst case scenario. For some reason, I don't know why, the majority of people will go to worst case scenario or take it personal,
Mm-hmm.
right? For the rule of 3 interpretation, I ask that we pause and we differentiate between what is a fact, what are things that are actually happening, and what are two other alternative interpretations. If I go worst case scenario, for
Mhm.
balance sake, I say go best case scenario, and then identify a likely case scenario for your third assumption. Once you have all three, then identify which one serves you best. Depending on the action you want to take, you might want to go with worst case scenario, you might want to go with best case
Mhm.
scenario, or with likely. And sometimes one of the assumptions that I identify is that I don't know enough.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? I say that a lot, but I
Absolutely.
want to make sure that
It
what I say and what
it
you hear.
absolutely makes sense to
Yeah.
me, and I'm sure the listeners will. They're also going to know at the very end of this conversation today, how to reach you if they do have any questions. So, what are your thoughts, Dr. Timmerman, about social media? Is that something we should avoid? Is that something we should stay on? Is that something we should monitor?
I think that when it comes to social media, there are positives and negatives, like with most things in life. I think that social media can give us a space to find like-minded people to sometimes normalize us, but it also can be a place that hype things up. So it's really important for us to figure out or to learn how to, I go back to that term, fact check the things
Yeah.
that we see, right? Because if you're looking at news, if you're looking at social media, usually what will grab our attention are things that are somewhat alarmist, right? Like the breaking news, and like they take our attention. And so once you see something, before believing in it, before sharing, go online and then identify three credible, I like the thing of three. Like I think if something happens three times as a pattern, right? So three credible sources that are credible to you, and just put neutral terminologies. So you will put, like, let's say the name of a person and the what the news said, like something that links, I don't know, like Dr. Timmerman likes chocolate. I don't know. And then you put Dr. Timmerman and chocolate, not the word likes or dislike, because those will give you like algorithms. I remember on NPR when a couple of years back, during COVID, I heard this great individual speaking, where the report said when you would write COVID data, it would show you all the numbers for COVID. But when you'd write COVID truth, it will go into different polarizing sides of how people see it, right? So the words that we use in action, intention, action, perception, I talk about intentionality of the words that we use in our word choices. The word choices that we use when we are trying to identify if something is real or factual or not is really important. So the words like or dislike will shift the algorithm of what you're going to receive. So I'll just put Dr. Timmerman and chocolate and see what shows up. I love the idea of making my conclusion based on the information that I find, as opposed to looking for information that validates the conclusion I already made.
Dr. Timmerman, you're working in trauma. What is the most common trend of trauma experiences that people come to you with?
Ooh, oh, that's quite a question. I mean, when we experience trauma, thinking about like PTSD, I was just speaking with a client about that. If you think of like personality disorders, there is a genetic trait to it. When we talk about like PTSD or trauma related symptoms, it is birth from a situation or a pattern of situations, right? So we become more hypervigilant. We create defense mechanisms to defend ourselves from the trauma. So one of the things that I see a lot is there are defense mechanisms that just become my normal.
Mm.
Specifically, a defense mechanism, as the term says, it's created to defend me from something that is hurtful. That's what a trigger is, right? Trigger is something that has hurt me or caused pain somehow, being a behavior, being a perfume, being whatever it is. Um, the defense mechanism defends me from that. But sometimes that is no longer in existence. The trigger or the situation is no longer in existence, but the defense mechanism becomes so automatic that I can't turn it off. right? So a lot of the times is identifying like, what is my reality now? Is my narrative up to date to my current reality? And if so, are my defense mechanisms serving the purpose that they were started with? Or can I identify when to turn it on and when to turn it off?
What do you teach your clients and people that you go out and talk to about self-care in relationship
Oh,
to trauma?
oh my God, self-care is huge. Um, I was having conversations in a couple of my sessions. We talked about creating a safe space for self. Right. So when we are in a heightened space of irritability, of if it is trauma due to a loss, like our mood, if I like to look at mood as energy, right? Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. We all know that.
Right, right.
So
Mhm.
depression is an energy depletion. Anxiety is a surge of energy. When your appliances go through a surge, like they all stop working. They can't function. So it's the same thing with that anxiety, right? So I talk about self-care as our way to give us a buffer, right? It
Mm.
helps us, again, recharge, because when our phone is not charged enough, it doesn't work properly. If we are not charged
Yes,
enough, we are
yes.
not going to work properly either. Um, so I
Yeah,
love
that's a
that
good
question.
comparison, a good metaphor for sure. Yes, yes. So somebody that is listening in to us right now and they're going through some kind of trauma, walk us through, Dr. Timmerman, what's the first thing that you recommend that person do if they're experiencing any kind of trauma?
When you notice that, let's say if you're having a flashback, there was something, think of your senses, right? Sometimes a smell, a voice, the way something like it brings you into a flashback. One of the first things that you want to do is what we call a grounding exercise, is remembering that you are here and now, and the here and now is safe. We're not in the space that created that emotional trauma. So there are a variety of grounding exercises. I assume, I don't know if you know this one, it's called the 5 4 3 2 1.
Yes, I am familiar.
Yeah. The purpose of the 5 4 3 2 1 is using our senses to bring ourselves to the here and now, right? So, what are 5 things that you see and you name all of them? What are 4 things that you hear and you name all of them? What are 3 things that you touch and you name all of them? What are 2 things that you smell and you name all of that? What is 1 thing that you taste and you name it? The idea is that it will bring our mind back to the now, because our mind is rushing somewhere else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are there any don'ts, things that people should not do that come to mind right now if they're experiencing any kind of trauma?
I think guilt and shaming ourselves.
Mm.
If you're going to be your worst enemy, make sure you're your best friend.
Yes.
Right? So that's what we call like a cognitive balance. If you're at a place of heightened anxiety or heightened trauma, what can I do to soothe myself? If it is from childhood trauma, soothe my inner child. If it, whatever it is, how can I soothe myself instead of chastise myself? Right? Is there a safe space that I can create? Think about, do I like to be cozy and have the smell of candles? Or like, what can I do to bring my body and my mind to the space that I deserve to be? Pause, right?
Mm.
When anxiety comes, it tends to go fast. So if I'm talking to you and I really talk really fast, I'm trying to get out, we animate ourselves. I would like for us to de-animate ourselves. So if you
Mm.
notice that you're speaking really fast, I would like for you to pause and give each word its due space. Instead of having your mouth try to meet the pace of your mind that's going 100 miles an hour, I want you to have your mind follow the pace of your mouth by slowing it down.
Gotcha. Yeah, great advice about slowing down.
Yeah.
So, do you have any books that you have written at this time?
I do. I do. The name of my book is Why Are We Fighting? Actionable Strategies for Effective Communication. And there I talk about the IAP model, intention, action, perception, which is specifically for communication. And because I am who I am not an auditory learner. I am more kinesthetic, which means that I learn as I do, and visual.
Okay.
So I have created worksheets for all of or the majority of the strategies that I talk about in the book. So chapter 4 are just all the worksheets for the strategies that I discuss in chapter 3.
Awesome. And where can the listeners find that book? Where is it located?
You can find it on Amazon, or you can go to my website. It's www at advocate, the number two create.com. So advocate to create.com, but the two is the number two.
Awesome. Well, with all the division in the world right now, everybody thinking they're right, so many people fighting on social media, even out in public. I mean, I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, and the other day I saw two people getting into it over nothing. It was just ridiculous. What is the advice you give people today to stay calm and not engage in that hatred and negativity?
So I think to stay calm in the conversation, one of the really important things is to be able to listen. I think sometimes we want to be heard that we forget that the other person also wants to be heard. There is a coping strategy that was not created by me, but I do put it in the book. That's called reflecting. And the science of reflecting is once you tell me something, I repeat it back to you what I heard and what I understood from what I heard. And I give you the opportunity to tell me if I'm right or wrong. Now, I'm going to give you a quick example. Again, I go back to anecdotes. I was having a family member of mine and I have very different political views. And we were having a conversation. And during the conversation, I said, because I know how we can get, let me implement reflecting. So he would say his point, I would repeat it back, repeat what I understood, and give him the opportunity to say if I was right or wrong. Afterwards, when we turned around, I'm like, okay, now I'm ready. I'm going to ask you to do the same. And then I responded to some of the things that had been inquired essentially, or the points how I saw it differently. And I paused him and I asked, can you reflect back to me? And what he reflected was what he thought I was going to say and not what I said. And it was interesting because his wife was right there. It's like, oh my God, but that's not what she said. Um, and we are so worried about knowing what the other person is going to say that we're actually not paying attention. So that would be one thing. The other thing that I can say, especially when we are conversing via phone or social media or stuff like that, when we do not have either the person's facial expression or tonality, we will read a message from our own tonality, right? So whenever I do communicate with someone, um, that whose opinions are different than mine, I always want to make sure that I will send a voice note because I want you to listen to my tone of voice and not interpret it by how I wrote it.
I feel the same way, Dr. Timmerman. I do that. I don't like texting unless it's just a quick, hey, I'm here. If I'm meeting somebody, I'm here. But yeah, I like to do the voice clip or the face to face or, get on the phone and just say, hey, I'm here, something like that.
And the last thing that I can put is I'll go back to boundaries, right? If I know that I'm having a conversation where I am getting animated and agitated, I can also say, hey, I'm in a space that if I speak right now, it's going to come out possibly rude. I would prefer if we could just not have this conversation right now because I know myself. So that
Yeah,
would be
that's
a
really
boundary
important.
setting.
I've always heard this that people who spew hatred or negativity often feel that they're hated or they have been treated negatively. Is that a true statement or do you feel differently, Dr. Timmerman?
I do not have data to either support or deny, so mine is completely an assumption, but I do assume that like when we talk about like narcissism and stuff like that, it's a little bit different. But when we're talking about like a person without these impairments, then yes, then it can be that I am hurting because I hurt. Like when you think of bullies in school, oftentimes you say like the person who hurts the most is the one who's hurting the most. It can't,
Oh, yes.
it's not across the board a generalization, but I do believe that there is some truth, for lack of a better terminology, to that statement. Just can't be generalized.
What's your opinion of this? I've often joked around, that the worst enemy in my life, and I am now in my early 60s, has never been the other person. It's always been me. I've always been my own worst bully. What are your thoughts on that?
That's why I say if we're gonna be our worst enemy, let's also be our best friend. I think it comes a lot from our from how we were raised. There's nature and nurture. I can share with you, for me growing up, I was always taught that you have the things that you're supposed to do. And so you don't necessarily get an accolade for like getting an A. But if you get a C or below, oh my goodness, right?
I
So
remember those days.
yeah, so there's so much focus on the things that you didn't do well as opposed to the things you did well. And I grew up learning to be humble. And
Okay.
I confused being proud about an accomplishment with being braggy. So I would put down my accomplishments and I would really voice up my criticisms. Now, as compared to other people in my family or friends, or the severity or intensity of these can differ, but we have the tendency of being our worst enemy, and it can come from nature or nurture or a little bit of both. So I do think that being able to teach ourselves to also be our best friend is not only okay, but
Mm,
important. I created and it's in the book, what I call instructive compliments.
okay.
Constructive criticism tells you where you're doing something wrong and where to change. Instructive compliments tell you what you're doing well to keep on doing, because that is just as important to know, so you can focus only on the area that needs change and not change everything.
Yeah. Change can be hard for some people. Yes, we're almost out of time. So again, would you share with the listeners about your book, the title of your book, where to find your book? Also, where can they contact you if they want to chase after you on LinkedIn or social media or your webpage? I mean, where can we find you, Dr. Timmerman?
Absolutely. So the name of my book again is Why Are We Fighting? Actionable Strategies for Effective Communication. You can find it on Amazon. You can find my information at www.advocate2create.com, and the two is the number two. You can find me as Dr. Timmerman on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can also find us, if you want to contact me, you can email me at info@advocate2create.com, or reach us out via phone at 305-204-7764.
Okay, Dr. Timmerman, for the benefit of the listeners, sometimes Timmerman is spelled with two M's. Would you spell your name for the listeners?
Yes, Timerman, like timer man, only one M in between.
Awesome. Coming from Miami, Florida, thank you, thank you, thank you for the metaphors, for the examples. And real quickly, we're down to the last minute. What is your ideal client to work with you?
Somebody who is open to the process.
Open to the process. Do you have any more that you want to share?
If you are working through trauma, grief, want to improve communication, working with anxiety, contact me. I love to work with those cases. Just be open to the journey.
Okay. And how do you do your clientele work with them? Do you work in person? Can they do it by Zoom? Can they do it by phone or another
Um,
platform?
so I see clients Monday through Friday, and I do mostly telehealth. Just Wednesday afternoons,
Mhm.
I have my office in Doral for any of you guys who are in the Miami, Florida area. So yes, I do a hybrid, once a week in office, the rest via telehealth.
Dr. Timmerman, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for your wonderful, wise advice. I wish you all the best going forward, helping to empower people. I'm signing off. I'm Dawn Westmoreland with Radio Asheville in Asheville, North Carolina. If you need to be empowered, you need to build your currency or, well, currency of resiliency muscles, reach out to me. If I can't help you, I will refer you to somebody who can, and it might be Dr. Timmerman. Take care and be well.